Good evening, everyone. This is Kip Nicely on behalf of the Gary Johnson 2012 for President campaign. I want to welcome you this evening from all across the country. Special shout out to the veterans out there here on Veterans Day, and thank you for joining with us tonight. This is the second Yowie event that we've had. We're really glad to have you here tonight. And this is the first one that is topic oriented. It is going to be a presentation with Governor Johnson as well as with the organization from Fair Tax, which, as most of you know, is the tax plan that he has advocated. If we can, try to keep the topic somewhat oriented toward the tax structure and economics as much as possible on this one. We're going to be going through a whole litany of topics over the next few weeks and months, including education plan, social issues, you name it down the line, but tonight is more geared toward the fair tax. So, folks, I guess while Phil is coming online, the topic is fair tax. You can look it up, fairtax.org, but let's watch his presentation. It's really going to be eye-opening, and you're going to see why Governor Johnson has endorsed this plan.
Let me get started here by saying that as President of the United States, I'm making 3 promises. I might add that as governor of New Mexico, I made very few promises, but I made good on all the promises that I did make. The 3 promises that I'm making as President of the United States is, number 1, I promise to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. I do this because I'm in the camp that believes that we're on the verge of a monetary collapse, that we need to stop printing money, that the mathematics of continuing to spend more money than what we take in are going to have a consequence of a breakdown in our currency. The last country to experience, I think, a monetary collapse, a big country, was Russia. I don't think we're immune from the same thing happening here in this country. So to prevent a monetary collapse, we need to stop printing money. To prevent this from happening in this country, we need to balance the budget. So I'm promising to submit a balanced budget. Now, that isn't to say that Congress will go along with that, but I'm promising to submit a balanced budget, a document that's going to lay out a 43% reduction in federal spending, and we could talk about that this evening. Secondly, I'm promising to veto any legislation where expenses exceed revenue. You could argue that, well, they'll just override your veto. They're going to have to override the veto. Keep in mind, I would have been elected president by promising to submit a balanced budget. It's what people would want should I be elected. And I'm also promising to veto legislation where expenses exceed revenue. I suggest to you that in this scenario that I just laid out, spending will be less than any other scenario that you could possibly come up with. Lastly, I'm promising to advocate on the part of throwing out the entire federal tax system and replacing it with the fair tax. We do have Phil on tonight. I hope he's able to come on, but the fair tax, very simply, is, as the name implies, it's fair. The more money you make, the more fair tax you'll pay. It will also promote savings. It'll apply to new goods and services. It'll be a 23% federal consumption tax. It'll do away with the income tax. It'll do away with corporate tax. It'll do away with payroll withholdings. It'll do away with the IRS. It's revenue neutral, so we still need to cut government spending, but there are a lot of ramifications that go along with the flat tax that are the fair tax that are very exciting. One of them is with a zero corporate tax rate environment, why would tens of millions of jobs not be created in this country by the private sector in an environment of zero corporate tax? The other theory that I think is not a theory, but with the fair tax, is the notion that embedded in the current cost of all goods and services is a 23% tax. So basically, if you take a can of Coke today that sells for $1, the estimate is that 23 cents of that dollar is embedded tax. So by implementing the fair tax, in a very short amount of time, you're going to bleed that 23 cents out, if not immediately. The Coke won't sell for $1 because Coca-Cola won't have to sell it for $1 to make a profit, the same profit. They'll be able to sell it for 80 cents. So the notion is that over a very short amount of time, this actually ends up being cost neutral. When it comes to China and the fact that there may be unfair trade practices from China, look, we're going to bleed out 23% of the cost of goods in this country. The fair tax will apply to all imported goods and services into this country, but it makes American goods a lot less expensive. It also issues a prebate check to everyone in the country, basically $200 a month, so that everyone in the country receives $2,400 a year to be able to pay the fair tax up to the point of the poverty level, so it's not regressive.